up this weekend, a blood and guts fight at featherweight. The fan favorite, Nate Landwehr, gets his due. He's on a 3-fight win streak, all of them bonuses, and now he gets a shot at the rankings against 50K Dan Ige, who fought outside of the rankings last time out and wobbled Damon Jackson multiple times in the first round before he landed a right to the body and a left hook from Heck. And he knocked him out cold. So for Dan Ige, a great win there. Ended a 3-fight skid. And if we go back and look at those 3 losses for Ige, one to the Korean Zombie in a main event where he got out-wrestled. One to Josh Emmett where in the first minute he got dropped by an overhand right. Then he wobbled Josh Emmett in the second round. And the third round was pretty competitive. And then he ended up losing to Movsar Ivloyev where he got completely out-wrestled.
Really Movsar's coming out party.
But his last time out, Dan Ige did look really good. But again, when you look at a guy like Nate Landwehr, he was the American from Tennessee that they brought across the world to lose, and then he just kept winning. He came into the UFC and got knee knocked out by Herbert Burns, who has not been a good Burns in the UFC. He also got knee knocked out by Julian Erosa. I know this all sounds strange, but for Nate Landwehr, I bet he drinks like 5 cartons of maple syrup in the morning if we're counting them by
Brett
cartons.
Lowry's it. He just drinks 17 Red Bulls, runs into that cage.
That guy loved to run after ground balls.
This is an interesting thing about this fight, though, because for Dan Ige, if you judge him solely off of those 3 losses to the elevated level of competition, then okay, you might think he doesn't necessarily belong in the top 15 outside of the Emmett fight. The Emmett fight's very competitive, but the Korean Zombie, I thought, outclassed might be a step too far, but he convincingly beat him in that fight. And same thing with Movsar Ivloyev. And if you want to go back even a little bit further, Calvin Kattar was able to outbox him, and he looked really good in that matchup,
kept him at range for the majority
But that's
of the
the
fight.
thing about Dan Ige. I wouldn't say that he has had a big step up or step down to levels of competition. There's just a very fine line of guys who really struggle against Dan Ige and guys who are going to be able to go out there and look good against Ige, because Ige's skill set is very much the same as it's always been. He's a very talented boxer, has extremely heavy hands, a good ground game, good wrestling, but again, if you really excel with your wrestling, if you're somebody who has sort of that next level of it, then yes, you will be able to go out there and out-wrestle him and control him on the mat. And that's why I'm going to be really curious to see what kind of pressure Nate Landwehr brings into this fight, because I brought it up right before we started filming. When Gavin Tucker just ran across the cage at Dan Ige and Dan Ige hit him one time and knocked him out, we've seen Nate Landwehr basically do the same thing, just march across the cage, be over-aggressive.
Hold on, hold on. So Gavin Tucker's from Atlanta, Canada. Vancouver is hours and hours and hours away. Do you think BC harbors a hate for Dan Ige and they boom when he walks out?
Probably not. It's in the same country, but it's about as far apart geographically as you can get. I just think for Dan Ige, he's been in this position before, right? Damon Jackson and Gavin Tucker are both talented fighters, but it's fair to say that they're a step below the Calvin Katars and the Korean Zombies of the world. And for Nate Landwehr, he's been on a really good run, but I don't think he's reached the Josh Emmett or the Korean Zombie point of his career yet. So if he is that aggressive version of himself, yes, it's going to give him more chances to win, but it's also going to give Dan Ige that many more chances to land those big counter shots.
Landwehr is one of those guys that gets counted out time and time again.
True.
Again, against Ludwig Klein, that's a performance bonus. Klein, in a way, matches up like Dan Ige, moving on the outside, compact, big power shots. Ige's one of those guys, though, he just marches forward in the majority of his fights, and he can, even behind the black line, lull you into his power shots and then land those big combinations, and he's usually at a height and reach disadvantage, and in this fight, slight height, slight reach disadvantage, but Dan Ige is one of those guys, mixing it from head to body. You can really see a difference that sets him apart, and has he fought a guy in the UFC with a porn star name? Yeah, he fought Mike Santiago and he beat him, but overall for Ige, a lot more winning than he has done losing at the top level. He is 8-5. He did lose to Julio Erceg in his UFC debut at UFC 220, but since then, a big progression. And the funny part about it for a guy like Dan Ige, his last time out, when he was taking on Jackson, Joe Martinez listed him as such. His background, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and boxing. Why don't you just say his friends call him a swell guy and he drives a Dodge Stratus?
Wow.
The guy does everything. I mean, he's
Checks
a catch.
all the boxes.
You want your daughter to marry a Dan Ige in life. So when it does come down to it, Nate Landwehr, a lot of great boxing. He's out of MMA Masters. You saw Themba Garimbo really push them into the stratosphere his last time out, but Colby Covington there, Priscilla Cachoeira, just some of the world's best in MMA Masters. I really do like Daniel Valverde and the team there. But for Landwehr, constant pressure, never gives up unless his brain and his chin evades him. He can really do good work. And we saw Nate Landwehr push a damn pace against Darren Elkins, who has some pretty good wrestling in the past as well. So I really like this fight. Ige is is favored quite a bit. He is the ranked party to this tango. If we have a look at the Tapology votes, Matt, surprise us there to you. I'm going to say over under 70% Ige.
I think it'll be over.
I think it's going to be over. Oh my goodness. 892 total votes, 71% Ige, 29% by decision, 64% by knockout. For the 29% that have Landwehr, 60% by decision and 20% by knockout. Who do you have in this matchup? Because I know the fans have Nate Landwehr.
I have Dan Ige in this fight. Again, if Nate Landwehr can make it so uncomfortable for Dan Ige on the outside, or I guess on the inside with his striking, with his pressure, then maybe Dan Ige just never gets started with his own offense on the back foot or even moving forward. But I do think Ige is a big enough puncher to where, okay, if he can hurt Nate Landwehr a couple of times, it's going to completely change the complexion of this fight. So for that reason, I do have Ige, but this should be a fight of the night contender.
I hate to go to the numbers. Nate Landwehr is 4-2 in the UFC, the former M1 global champ, and his strike differential 6.47 given to 5.51 taken per minute. Dan Ige 3.8 to 3.58. So Dan Ige much lower in the volume. Nate Landwehr just trucks it and trains it forward. I will go with Dan Ige in the matchup. I think he's going to have a little bit of an advantage at circling out of some of the bad positions and making Landwehr pay. Ige is one of those guys that invests a lot in the body work. Nate Landwehr can too. Sometimes he headhunts a little bit. So I will go with Dan Ige and Extreme Couture in this matchup. But this should be an absolute amazing fight at featherweight. I can't wait for it, and I'm really eager to see who the fans have in the comments section below on this one. Make sure you check us out, Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well, for that content, the audio podcast. Some big fights on this card. Keep it locked into Fight Night Picks, we always say.
Let's get into it.